Hey everyone, before we get into today's episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business, I'm going to talk to you briefly about the membership that we offer within Tutors Who Thrive. We called it Tutors Who Thrive Together because we come together as a network of tutors and support each other on this tricky journey of running a business. There are a number of benefits of being part of this membership. We do weekly co-working spaces where you're able to come and work as a group of tutors on the task that you set. So you come and set your intention for the time and we keep you accountable for it. And we do that every single week. There are also monthly workshops that are chosen by the community, which means you continue your business development on a monthly basis with the topics that mean the most to you. It's just £28 a month to join. If you want to know more, I'll leave a link in the description for you to check out the landing page. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out to me. Right, on with today's episode. Welcome back, everyone. We've got another special episode. We've got a guest this week. This is Matthew from, I'm going to say it right, it's Capital, I've written it down, Capital Tuition Group, Matt.
That's right.
We met in China for the first time, which is where we've made this link, and getting to know you over China was amazing. I think the general feedback from the China mission was that all of the meetings and things we went to were really great, and it was amazing to learn from our Chinese counterparts. But actually what we all took back from China was us all getting on really, really well and just being really open with one another as businesses, which was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was incredible. I think probably that was the thing that most people came back with, is a sense of, wow, I've really found a community of other business leaders who are in the tutoring sector. And it was incredible. I think there were 20 or 25 delegates,
Yeah.
representing all kinds of tutoring companies in the UK. And for nearly 2 weeks, we just talked tutoring, business, markups, safer recruitment, processes, systems, and we just never ran out of steam.
No.
We could have been there for another 2 weeks.
Do you reckon?
And for sure, and we will still be talking about it right now. I mean, just before this call, we just started talking more about it.
I was just saying, yeah, we'll never stop. I think, maybe, I reckon that we could probably find about another 20 people and we'd have like 40 of us all sat around doing that for a couple of weeks, no problem. Well, in fact, that's been part of the conversation back in the UK, is that actually is there a space where we could just all meet up and just talk about our businesses and just help one another? I think which is kind of what this is about. But I think, like, from the people in the Grow Your Tutoring business group that we've got on Facebook, a lot of people are at the very early stages, and I think some of our conversations might be quite scary. They certainly scared me a lot when we were sort of sat around doing like the business, the support that we had. Do you remember when we sat down in the reception in Beijing and we sat around? So I mean, crikey, like my jaw was on the floor during that, listening to what everybody was asking and the advice people were giving. So,
but you know what, though? What's really interesting about you saying that is that every person, regardless of where they're on their journey, is feeling that exactly the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So, even I'm feeling it about tutoring companies that are bigger than Capital Tuition Group. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And they ask the same questions. It's the same problems at a different level, isn't it? That was what I brought back. And I was saying to some people, like in our inner circle of Tutors Who Thrive, like, it was fascinating to hear that we're all experiencing the problems come back again. They're the same problems, but we're experiencing them at just a different level. Whereas you kind of feel that, I don't know, being the bit green around the ear around business, you kind of go, well, if I get to that bit, I'll be all right. And then when you get there, you go, if I get to that bit,
he'll be all right.
And then you just never get there. It's the same. The problems keep coming up, which is kind of what I think is enticing about business, actually, and what keeps us addicted to it. I think there's that.
Addiction is being addicted. I keep saying that I'm addicted to Capital Tuition Group.
Yeah.
And I don't say it lightly either. I am absolutely addicted. I just came off a call with another tutoring organization. It's a Saturday. We're recording this on a Saturday afternoon. And we're there really chewing the cud about, some particular process problems that we're both experiencing, how we can maybe help with their solutions because we've already sort of done it. And we're it's a Saturday, guys. We're working on our tutoring company, but we love it, and it's fun.
Well, we're here smiling about it, and we're more than willing to just probably chat through the afternoon, right? That's what we would actually do if there wasn't an end to it. But let's actually give it some structure. There's actually a theme for today, which I've been wanting to talk about for a while. It's something I have spoken about in the past, or just drip fed it in a little bit into other podcasts and into the group, which is this idea that we don't have to stay with the thing that we're currently doing, right? And I think you are an inspiration around here, around this topic, just because of your journey towards teaching and then tutoring and then what you've done with your tuition business. So give us a bit of an overview, Matthew, of how it all started for you.
Gosh, okay, how far back do I go? So I guess I think it would be useful to sort of describe my journey from the point of university. I went to university and I did zoology and marine zoology, and then I did a master's, and that master's was in marine mammal science. That was done between the University of Wales in Bangor and then a research organization in Canada. So I was splitting my time between North Wales and Quebec. And so my first career essentially then just segued me into, from my university, segued me into being a marine biological researcher. And I specialized in whales and dolphins. And so a lot of the stuff that I was researching was boat-based stuff, ventilation patterns, identification, population dynamics, feeding behaviors, traveling behaviors as well, migratory behaviors. Also just trying to figure out who was who, which dolphin was which dolphin, which whale was which whale. Um, and that career was just absolutely wonderful. And I had a variety of contracts around the world, Canada being my principal first one. And then I had a contract in Scotland. I did also a little bit of work in Ireland. I did some work in the Canary Islands. I also moved and lived for a year in Kenya, where I was working for an organization that was essentially reporting directly to KWS, which was Kenya Wildlife Service, and our responsibility was to monitor and manage a particular marine reserve called Umpunguti Marine Reserve. And there we had two main missions. One was to advise on how to make it sustainable, because there was lots of local fishing, which is great, but there was also lots of ecotourism that was booming, and it was sort of damaging the corals, etc., as well as impacting the behaviors of the Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins. So I was doing lots of teaching, lots of research. We had lots of eco volunteers come out, and we were sort of training them up to be data scientists and collecting reliable data. And we presented at, the European Cetacean Society conferences and all around the world. So I had a really wonderful marine biology career.
So
And
how
then
did you go? Yeah. So why would you leave that behind to go and to go
all the
become
time.
a teacher? I mean, what happened?
Um, it was a very clear moment for me in my mind, and the clarity came. I remember it very, very well, as if it was yesterday. We were on the boat, and we were doing a transect, and we were monitoring fish diversity on a transect. We were all snorkeling away, and I got back on the boat, and then suddenly there's a huge pod of dolphins around us, sort of dancing and doing all their thing. And I was monitoring it as quickly as I possibly could, and I just stopped for a minute, and I was like, I've got to go home. I've just got to go home. Because I'd been
Right.
away and been traveling abroad for sort of 5 years at that point, and I just thought, okay, I do have to go home, and you get paid nothing as a marine biologist. I mean, you literally get paid nothing. And particularly at the time where we weren't talking about being green or anything like that. So that I've got to go home and do something that I know is going to build on a career, it's going to create a career for me. And so I went home and I began a PGCE. And I thought, I'm going to be a science teacher. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a science teacher because I've done quite a lot of teaching in the world of marine biology and presenting and stuff like that. So I've got, oh, that's right, I can be a teacher. I can be a science teacher. That's going to be great fun. So I go to King's College, London. I do my PGCE. And this is where life is so interesting. It's all twists and turns. You just never know what's going to happen. I just thought I'd go and do my PGCE and go into a school, and that was sort of go and be it, really. But it was very exciting from the get-go because there was a group of us that were sort of, I don't want to say headhunted, but people, the recruitment crisis in teaching was already in existence, right? It was already there. So we had people come to the university and go, okay, who's good? Who's good? Who's good? And there was a bunch of us that were collected for this particular school, which was a school in special measures in Southwest London, in Tolworth. It was rough as heck, and it's just inside the border of Surrey. And I think at the time there were 52 secondary schools in Surrey. On the league table, this school was 52nd.
Right.
And
Okay.
so I just started my PGC placements at this particular school. It had already got a head of an executive head in and all the rest of it, and it was just fantastic. The energy that the remaining, so an executive head had come in, cleared out all the dead wood, and had brought in like young, dynamic, as well as really experienced, advanced skills teachers, brilliant practitioners, and this, even though we were in special measures and we had horrendous results, the quality of my CPD, the quality of the teaching that I was seeing in the classroom to my left and the classroom to my right, the quality of the support that we had as new, fresh graduate teachers was insane. So I remember on my placement, after a week of being there on my first placement, I was like, this is where I want to work. And I remember that the head teacher, who put a lot of trust and faith in me straight from the get-go, he said to me, he brought me into my office. Now, bearing in mind, I'd just come back from Kenya, so I'd cobbled together a tie and a shirt. And he sat me down in his office and he said, right, Matthew, what do you look like? And I said, I'm sorry, what do you mean, what do I look like? He said, you look ridiculous. I was like,
Oh,
what do you mean I look ridiculous? He says, it's not even a proper suit. You're not even, I said, I don't even own a suit. I said, you're lucky that I'm in more than just board shorts right now. Anyway, at the end of that conversation, and he supported me extensively, and at the end of that conversation, he said to me, whatever you do, make sure that you take as many risks as you can with your teaching, which was exactly the green light that I needed to really be as experimental, as daring, as bold. And I would be writing sort of lesson plans late into the night. I'm like, could that work? Would it work? How do I logistically, would this confer the right amount of educational benefit to the students that all the rest of it. So it was just the most fascinating time, really fertile ground. I could never have asked for a better introduction to the teaching world. And it made me the teacher that I am today. And I stayed in that school for 4 years, got very, very quickly promoted to sort of head of year. And I remember when I got given head of year, it was at the time, it was the year 9 cohort, for which the school had paid exorbitant amounts of money for external consultants to come in and tell us how to manage their behavior, because they were
okay.
feral, wild, crazy, crazy. And when I went for the interview, it was just for a head of year position, and they hadn't allocated which head of year it was going to be. And there were a couple of posts going to be open. And then we got the results, and he said, Matthew, I want you to be head of year 9. I went, no, I can't. The head teacher's name was Alex. I was like, Alex, I can't. No, it's too much. They're crazy. They're going to kill me. They're going to eat me alive. Um, and what I'm very, very proud to say is that we were horrendously poor achieving school. Within 8 months, we had turned around the school from going from special measures to good with outstanding.
Wow.
We were the 8th most improved school in the country for that year. And when my cohort got through to the end of year, I saw them all the way through to the end of year 11. The value added that we confer to the students in my cohort meant that in the league, we were second out of 52 for value added in Surrey, which is like an achievement that we're still really, really proud of.
I've got to ask something here, which I'm hoping lots of other people are going, please, Rich, ask this questions. Like I talk to a lot of tutors, like countless. amounts. And the one thing that always comes through is like this passion, like, and I can see it, like how proud you are, and like that.
Yeah,
That's such a big achievement, isn't it? I know lots of people will be listening, going, "Oh my god, that's such a to be able to turn that around." And by the way, I've worked in the schools like that, and it's such a hard thing to do
yeah.
to turn a culture around, even over 5 years, let alone within one. So I can see like how much it means. So how or why are we allowing people like with that passion and this drive to like leave? I'm saying it's not really their choice, it's always our own. But how do we keep hold of you? It would be the other
Yeah.
question, I suppose, on the flip side. How do we keep hold of people like Matthew in the education system?
Oh gosh, I don't know whether I'm the right person to answer it. Listen, it was a time of my life. I was 20. I think I started when I was 26. Yeah,
Mm,
26. I saw my cohort through and a 30. So I did 4 years in the classroom, then I did an extra year as an SLE, which is a specialist leader in education. Um, but I remember absolutely loving it, and I really did love it. And I worked in a department that was brilliant. Our science department, I really genuinely, I can honestly say, hand on heart, I looked forward to going to work nearly every day because the other science team members were hilarious. We laughed so much, so hard all the time. And I really had I think I just had a real heart for the students. I was like, I can make it's cheesy as heck, it's cliche as heck, but I'm like, I know that I can get them from currently a D grade, because we were still working in letters back then. I know that I can get this kid from a D grade to a B. I know I can. And that will make all the difference to him. Won't make any difference for me, but it will
mm,
make all the difference to him or her. And I really enjoyed the pastoral side of things. And so I did talk to my cohort a lot. And they couldn't quite believe it when I used to call them gentlemen or sirs or ladies, and they would be like, "You're talking to me, sir?" I'm like, "Yes, of course I'm talking to you." And I'd hold open the door for them and stuff, just minor, tiny stuff like that. But I think it was new for them.
yeah.
And and because of the heart that I had, of like, I know that I can do, I know that I can get you to a place that will give you keys and options to go and explore the world. So I'm not answering your question at all here. I do know that. But once I'd done my 4 years, I don't think that there is anything that could have revitalized me. I was spent. And I mean, I was utterly spent. I'd worked 60, 65 hours a week, every week, day in, day out, um, for 4 years. And the other thing that I would say is I once remember it was a February before I resigned, and it was February before my year 11s were going to take their exams. And we sat in a staff meeting, and one of my staff members, so I had a team of I think it was about 8 or 10 people, and one of them is a lady called Andrea. She's like, "Are you all right, Matthew?" Yeah, fine, yeah, why? She said, don't take this the wrong way, but you're grey."
Mm.
I said, "What?" I said,
And
"What you
then,
mean? I'm the color grey." She said, "Your skin is sallow. You look grey. You're grey." And she said, "You look exhausted."
mm,
And when I did quit teaching, it was so funny because when I was 30 when I quit teaching, but people were aging me at 35, 38, 40. And when I quit teaching within 6 months, and I was meeting new people, I moved to London shortly afterwards, and I was meeting new people, and people genuinely thought that I was 5 years younger than 30. They're like, "What, 26,
no
25? I don't
way.
know." And I literally had de-aged by about 10, 15
Mm,
years because I was just so tired. And there was nothing left inside. There was nothing left. Like, it was dry, dry, dry. It wasn't through lack of effort. I was offered head of department. I was offered assistant headship. I got offered ridiculous increases in my salary. And I said no to all of it.
mm,
I said no to all of it. And looking back now, I do wonder where I'd be. I do wonder where I'd be in the sort of progression stakes. But yeah,
mm,
the answer is I don't know. It's a young person's game, and at the same time, you really need people who have got the experience, the know-how. Like,
mm.
our head of department was 25 years in the game. He'd seen it all. And he'd be like, that'll work, that won't. And he was a great teacher. And our second in was an AST, which was really helpful as well. And that's an advanced skills teacher. She was phenomenal. Um, and she was like, try this activity and just tweak it for this group. And it was just wonderful, like so much richness coming to us.
I think there's a lot there's a lot to unpick, which we probably won't have time to. But
Yes.
one of the things that it always screams out to me is this whole, like, there's just a time, like, there's not many professions where you have to do 65 hours a week,
Mm,
week in, week out. Like,
yeah.
there are some professions that do that, like as in like in little windows, and then you get your time back. So toil, which is just not a word that's used in education, like
Yeah.
time off in lieu, and so what you spend, you get back somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I think there is something in that. And I know it doesn't work in education, toil, it just wouldn't work. Or
Yeah.
maybe that's too final, but I can't see how it would work. We'd need to really think about it. But there is something about that protective and boundary over time, isn't there? An effort. Like, so for you to do your job at that level and achieve what you achieved, that
Yeah.
is what it took.
I think there's a reality about teaching, as there are in a lot of frontline jobs,
Mm,
is that there are two factors that are extremely high that are not conducive for well-being. The first factor is stress levels. Stress levels are extremely high in teaching, and you've got Ofsted breathing down your neck. You've got senior leadership going, why are the results not as good as they should be? Let's close the gap on value added. Let's go close the gap on attainment. For nowadays, it'll be, let's close the gap on P8. Our P8 scores are rubbed. So the stress is high. We're put under an enormous amount of pressure. And the second variable is, I suppose, changeability. From one day to the next, you have no idea what your day is going to look like. And I
yeah.
mean, literally no idea. I remember this one particular time, it was literally, I was my GCSE group, my cohort, my year 11s. I'd just given them a Friday morning assembly, and I was like, right, off you go to break now. And then I had a kid that came to me, and I'll never forget his name. Um, for safeguarding purposes, let's call him Louis. Uh, and Louis comes up to me and he says, "Oh yeah, so yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be available on Monday." I said, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Louis. What do you mean you're not going to be available on Monday? It's your English language GCSE exam on Monday.
Oh,
You
God.
have to be available." He said, "Yeah, it's a funny thing, really. Yeah, no, I've been called to go and give evidence in a court hearing because my mum's partner keeps beating her up. You see, so yeah,
Oh,
so I'm going to be in court, so I can't make my GCSE exam." Like, Louis, this is not. And so for the rest of that day, I got cover for all of my lessons, for the rest of my lessons. And I was bringing up the local police, social services, the local judiciary system, and literally anybody else that I could think of that would then be able to give me a special dispensation for Louis so that he didn't have to go to court and he could actually sit his GCSE English. And this is the thing. And I was like, this
Mm,
this boy's life is, maybe I was taking it too seriously, but this boy is not going to get an English GCSE. And he was going to be CD borderline anyway. But I'm like, I know that he's in a good space to probably get a C, in which case he's got that set of keys that I was referring to earlier.
yeah.
Then he can do whatever he wants. He'll have got
Yeah.
his C grade in English and math. That's all that really matters. If he doesn't sit his English language GCSE, he's definitely not going to get that. So anyway, he strolls in. I got it. And I called home. I was like, I've got your dispensation. He comes in, strolls in. He said, "Do you know what, sir? Funny thing, it's been postponed, the court hearing anyway." And I was there until Friday night, until 6 p.m. Everybody else disappears on at 3:05, or our school
Mm,
was at 3:30. Like at 3:31, everybody's out the door. But it was just unbelievable. It was
mm,
unbelievable the stuff that. So those are the two factors basically
mm.
that cause teachers to leave, because on top of that, it's not spectacularly well paid. It's a reasonably well paid.
It's a trap. I think it's well paid enough that it makes you go, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get another job that's going to pay that amount, and so you end up going, oh, I'll just stick it out. Oh, and the pension. Oh, and I get 6 weeks off in the summer. Oh, and it feels like you get completely sort of trapped into the lifestyle of it, really. And that is kind of this is a sore point, because lots of people leaving teaching will say, "Oh, what about the summer holidays?" And I'm like, have you ever worked a job, a normal job? Like, because there are millions of people and parents who manage it, and sometimes it's not easy. So I'm not going to say it's like just go and do it and it shouldn't be part of your thought process, but millions of people juggle it and make it work. So anybody can make anything work if you really want to do it enough. And so all of that things I get, yeah, we have to do a lot of advice around that, when you're like pretty much like what we did off camera before, where we was like, right, what if someone charges this amount an hour? How much does that really mean over the year? Like, we do a lot of that work, and we go, well, you
Well,
can't charge that amount because you're not going to get what you need, and you need to think about it.
I also think that actually there's a lot of teachers who go, and I've got friends who are in the teaching profession who want to leave because they're exhausted and they're
Yeah.
spent. But I think the huge amount of rhetoric is like, I don't have the skills for anything else.
Mm,
It is simply not true.
mm,
So we have at Capital Tuition Group, we have loads of teachers who leave the profession, and they say to me, so I'm about to leave the profession and I want all the hours that you can give me. Can you promise me? And I'm like, well, I can't promise you anything, but I know that I can get you some work. But they soon settle in.
mm,
And I did exactly the same thing. So I left teaching and I became a full-time science tutor. And within 9 months, I was full. I
mm,
couldn't take any more on. Which is why Capital Tuition Group then came about. But it's not true that once you leave teaching, or that when you're thinking about leaving teaching, that you are a de-skilled, unskilled member of society. There's loads of things that you can do, loads of things.
mm. No, so tell us a little bit more about that then. So you obviously leave teaching, you say you handed your notice in the February. Did you see out the current cohort with your year
Yeah,
11s?
I saw my cohort, and funnily enough, the dates coincided quite nicely. So they sat their GCSEs, and results day was on the 22nd of August 2013. And 22nd of August 2013 was also my 30th birthday, where we got those amazing results, where we were like second in 52. And it was the last time I ever saw my entire year group in one place.
Oh, wow.
And I left teaching, I became an SLE. So I started working, academy trusts were starting to form at that point. And what that meant was that, our school, or the school that I'm referring to, essentially became the lead academy school for a whole chain now. That head teacher, incidentally, has since been knighted and given an OBE. Yeah. Do you get knighted with an OBE? Yeah, he's now, is that a knighthood? Anyway, he's got an OBE.
Got an OBE. Is that the order? The order one, not
Order of the British Empire. He's got an
yes.
OBE in for his services to education. And he is now sort of the CEO, I guess, of a very large academy chain in the southeast of the country. And so I started working in various other schools to help improve the teaching and learning in the science departments, pre-Ofsted, post-Ofsted. On a couple of occasions, they wheeled me out for Ofsted. And so I had that. And I also started to supplement that with tutoring. And at the same time, I moved to London
Mm.
because I was living outside London, even though I was commuting in. And then I just decided to move. So I moved to Southwest London properly. I started tutoring, where I dared to put my rates up at £30 an hour. And
Wow.
I know, right? Money making scheme that was. And it took off. And within 9 months, I was full, and I stayed like that, just tutoring, probably for about 2 years, thinking, well, this is fine, this is good, flexi. But I realized I was actually working quite hard, and it soon wasn't enough for me. And I'd always had the idea that it'd be great if some people could tutor for me, because I was so many inquiries that I couldn't then fulfill. I was just like, oh, do you want to do this, mate? Yeah, I've got a family here that I can't take on. Yeah, they live in Battersea. You can, yeah, great. Okay, I'll pass you the number. And that's a very classic story. Loads of tutoring
Mm.
companies sort of stemmed from that basis. And then in 2015, Capital Tuition Group was born because my dad said to me, oh, so you've got ideas that other tutors would tutor for you, do you? Oh, okay, cool. Go on then. I dare you. I was like,
So a big push from your dad.
yeah, it was a really,
Yeah.
really helpful push. And within the day, I'd written what the contents of a website would look like, and I bought a domain name, and I figured out a name.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I just did it. And so our first trading month was September 2015, where we had a total revenue, hold your horses here, Richard, of £35.
No way.
Yeah. And that was and that was nine and a bit years ago. So and now we're obviously kind of national tutoring program of
Mm,
approved partners. We're endorsed by the Good Schools Guide. We're corporate members of the Tutors Association. We're multi-award winning. I've got a team of over 250, nearly 300 tutors. I've got an admin team of four full-time in the office. We've got a virtual office. But and I've got other sort of part-timers or peripheral people so our core admin team would be about 10
okay.
10 people, but the other four, apart from us four, they're not full time necessarily. So yeah, so it's become a thing. I just keep and the just opportunities come about. Then the China trade mission comes about. I had no idea this time last year that I was going to go on a China trade mission.
Mm.
I had no idea that I was going to be an approved partner with the tutoring program. All of this stuff just comes about just by virtue of life happening to you.
What do you think is the where you get that drive from? Because we had a few conversations on our long coach journeys around China, where and it's with other businesses as well,
Yeah,
where yeah, let's just take the national tutoring program as an example. There's an
yeah,
opportunity to get involved in something where country really needs it, right? Because we're all being devastated by COVID, the just having all of that time out of school, whatever level, has just really lowered where the children would have been previously. So the government comes out with this plan, but you've got to go through this process. Where do you think that drive to go, okay, we have no idea how this is going to work. We have no idea the kind of things we're saying yes to. Let's
yeah.
go and do it anyway. Where do you think that comes from?
Most of it comes from need, actually. And the reason I'm saying that is because we were already servicing schools we were delivering tutoring to schools because of the contacts and connections that I had. When the legislation changed and the national tutoring program went through another iteration, where suddenly they said, oh yeah, you can only be delivering tuition to schools if you're an NTP provider. And we
Okay.
had been up to that point providing tuition to schools through the schools-led tutoring grant, which is a different pot of money.
Okay.
But we'd had loads of contract organized for the subsequent year. And then the legislation came out on the last day of term of the summer. So
Oh,
schools all broke up happily. There was no big announcement. So schools came back in September having no idea that some of the tutoring services that they were buying in were not NTP approved. I got wind of this because one of my tutors was like, oh, does this affect you? And otherwise I would have missed it. So it was very serendipitous that that lady texted me this news. And so all summer, I was preparing to become an NTP approved partner. I'd already tried the previous year, didn't get in. And so we were modeling our second attempt, I suppose,
mm,
on that first round, but it was being taken over. That was being arbitrated by Randstad. This new one was tribal. And so we knew that the process was going to be quite different, but that was all we had to go on. And so the drive is sheer panic, is that I've got 5 schools.
I love that.
It's sheer panic that I've got 5 schools where we're delivering hundreds of student hours, uh, and I have to suddenly be approved. Otherwise, I'm losing this entire
Mm,
portion of the business. I've also just taken on another full-time member of staff for which I only made that decision because I'd secured these contracts, which
yeah.
would more than cover that person's salary. So a lot of the time, the drive is just sheer need.
Do you know, it's that I think that's pivotal to the conversation, because we often talk at a different stage. Again, this is us talking about a business at a different level. But like I would say, my decision just to start tuition was based out of need.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a time when I was like, oh my God, I'm in panic mode because my payments are going to stop. I need to do something. What am I going to do? I
Yeah.
was like, kind of felt rock bottom, rock bottom emotionally.
Yeah.
I need to do something as it comes from there. So do you think that most decisions in business come not maybe not at that rock bottom emotional from an emotional perspective, but you kind of looking at the future and going, oh my God, if we don't do this bit now,
Yeah.
we're either going to stay where we are, which in a business sense is not always a good thing to do. If you're not moving forward, you're going backwards. That's general
Right.
business. And you go, right, I've got to do something different or I've got to change something here.
Um, you're 100% right. Entrepreneurship, from my experience now, is just a relentless series of problem solving.
We're putting people off, aren't we, Matt? Could I just say we did tag this up as the inspirational part of the podcast, the
But I actually think that
honest part of the podcast.
I think it's interesting because it is a series of problem solving.
Hmm.
And actually, it's nothing more than that. And I think a lot of people go, "Oh, well, I don't know anything about business. I don't know how to run a company." None of us do. I kid you not, none of us do. And that was evident from the fact that all of us business leaders were on coaches going from this hall to this hotel to this restaurant to whatever it might be. It sounds really glamorous. It was actually, but we're having we're having these conversations as if we know what we're talking about.
Mm,
It's not. If you can read the writing on the wall before the event happens, you're in a good space and you can kind of predict and you get better at that
mm.
as a business leader. The rest of the time, the problem comes fast forward up at your face. It smashes against your head, and you go, I've got to solve this, and I've got to solve this yesterday. Sometimes they're quick fixes. Other times it's big problems,
Mm.
and then it's all almighty, all hands on deck, and you solve it, and then you're really proud of yourself. And that's where I think the addiction comes in. And whilst I'm saying yes, it is a bit of a roller coaster, there are times where you're like, okay, so that's working quite well over there. That seems to be okay. No problem. I didn't hear anything from them. That's good. What about, okay, all seems to be going okay. That's the moment I panic because I'm like,
You know something's going to happen.
this is the quiet before the storm. But it's a series of problem solving. And I think good entrepreneurs surround themselves as well, when you are able to, with good, what my business mentor says is a good solutions architect. My second hire was just meant to be a PA to me and
Mm.
a bit of a sort of admin person. She is now the director of operations of Capital Nutrition Group
Yeah.
and is the brainchild behind Tutor Onboarder. So she's the one that's designed Tutor Onboarder. So this goes quite nicely with what you're saying. Where you go next is not necessarily where you end up. It's not where you
Mm.
stay. It's just another, so she's the second most senior person in the company now.
Well, and this is another common conversation I have with people who have made it into sort of having what I would consider having a headquarters. I know you don't have a physical office, but you have like your virtual office, but you have these people sat around who are essentially part of that business decision process, right? These people are people you trust,
Yeah.
and they become part of I suppose, the
Family.
fabric of your business, which is they're absolutely pivotal. The whole idea of it, whatever we do now doesn't have to be the thing that we continue to do forever. It can be whatever you choose to be. I think there's something here around the problem solving, which leads us really like brilliantly towards the Tutor Onboarder, because there were lots of hurdles along the way that we're not really talking about here. Like when you're trying to become one, growing your business just in general with other people, just employing others, that has its whole own set of problems to overcome. But I
Mhm.
think in particular with the tuition world and the NTP, there were certain things that you had to go through, which was a very manual process.
Yeah.
Now, without going into all those details, because that would take us well past the last sort of 10 or so minutes that we've probably got left, Matthew, this has
Yeah.
led you into the thing that's taking you towards the next thing. So tell us about Tutor Onboarder and where that idea came from and
Yeah.
how it's going to help solve people's problems.
No, 100%. It's one of those situations that came up. Okay, so we went through the very, very rigorous process of becoming an approved tuition partner with the National Tutoring Program. That process was extremely, extremely thorough. We were audited to the nth degree, and some of our processes and systems were great, others were seriously lacking. And one of our medium ones was safer recruitment. And the level to which we needed to prove how safely we had recruited our tutors was not up to scratch. It moved up really huge numbers of notches because of the NTP. And we very, very quickly figured out that if we wanted to reach this level of compliance, it was going to sink the business. And I mean sink the business because my director of operations, I just took her off what she was doing. I took my senior client manager off what she was doing. I took my admin lead off what they were doing, my marketing lead off what they were doing. I was like, right, everybody's starting to type out DBS numbers on an Excel spreadsheet. Let's go.
Wow. Okay.
And so the business stalled in terms of people actively generating business, generating income streams. And I started calculating, I was like, okay, to fully onboard a tutor, it's now going to take me about 8 hours from the application process to the interviews, to all the ID checks, the teacher prohibition checks, the online checks, the CV gap check, and all the rest of it. I said all of that process, plus maintaining a single central record, which every tutoring company should be doing, we were just never going to come out of it. And it was just had been a completely money-eating, time-eating administrative burden. So I said to my director of operations, I said, you need to build something very, very quickly that streamlines all of this. And she did, and she did it single-handedly. And she took maybe about 2 months to streamline this, and she ordered it with coding and backend, and made it talk to our website, and made it talk to our CRM, and made it talk to some Google Sheets, and all the rest of it. And that was October last year, so it's not very long ago, right? And suddenly, oh, my team were not stressed. Suddenly, my team had time and availability to do the things that I'd hired them to do, i.e., be a marketing lead or an admin lead, or be a director of operations, or be a senior client manager and get business coming through the door. And we could breathe easy again once more. And then come February, I said to my director of operations, her name's Noor, by the way, I said to Noor, right, we need to build this more properly now because the system we've got is great, but it's a skeleton prototype. I said, build it properly. She was like, can I make it into a platform? I said, yes, make it into a platform. Go and find some developers. Let's do this. Here's your budget. Go. And so she did. And so in 6 months, she has orchestrated with her team of developers that she recruited and her quality, her QA guy. And we've also got a UX and a UI specialist who's looking at it. She's generated and created Tutor Onboarder, and we're launching next Thursday. So this Thursday coming on the 24th of October.
And you're giving us a talk at I'm always a bit nervous about doing this in a recording of a podcast, but so we'll caveat this with we're recording on Saturday the 19th of October 2024. Next week is the TTA conference, and you're giving a talk there where you're going to talk about safer recruitment and building.
So I'm going to be talking very much about the process, problems that tutoring companies face and that we faced as well. We'll share all of that with you. And I'm not going to be strictly speaking about what Tutor Onboarder does because I'm not necessarily allowed to, but we do have a stand there.
Great.
And we're going to celebrate our official launch, and we're going to have a bit of a countdown. So if you're struggling with the admin load of safer recruitment, or if you're struggling with, like, I don't know, half the things you just said, I don't have an SER, I don't know how to do teacher prohibition checks. What is, I don't even know that I was supposed to specifically be looking at a children's barred listing section on the DBS. There's loads of stuff that people don't know. I didn't know until all that long ago, really. I'm much more up to date with it now, but people don't know. It's okay that people don't know. It's also okay that people don't have the time. This is why we're trying to bring this tool to really raise the game for the entire sector. And we're really, really excited about bringing it to people.
It just feels really timely, just in general, though, doesn't it? Because it's been in the news a lot the last few months,
Yeah.
and the tuition industry's kind of been put on blast, hasn't it? Like or it's been attempted to be put on blast over the last a couple of months, whether it's been on BBC, well,
Yeah.
BBC in particular, been picking it up, which I think is a good thing. I do think this is like necessary conversations to be had,
Agreed.
but we're very lucky in that we I think the TTA in general and the people we've got involved in the TTA, this is something we do talk about a lot, and it's
Yeah.
something we
Yeah.
take very seriously. And so to have something like this that's going to help lessen the workload, it's going to make it easier for tutoring agencies and tutoring businesses to make sure that they stay on the right side of this, whether it's recruiting safety, but ultimately like child safety, as putting at the center of our businesses, which is where it belongs. So it's good.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think what's really noticeable in that we ran loads of focus groups over the summer, and I had lots of questionnaires and I really delved down and we into the sort of the needs that tutoring companies had. And we're all individually recreating and reinventing the wheel. We've all got the same problems and we're all
Mm,
scratching our heads individually going, well, if I do that and if I put this in Trello or if I use Monday.com or if I, well, I'm going
yeah,
to put this into an Excel spreadsheet. So we're all of us doing exactly the same problem solving
yeah,
which is hopeless. And that's marked inefficiency within the tutoring sector. So
yeah,
I think one of the things that the Tutors Association has so brilliantly done is it has brought us all together, provides a space and a platform and a forum whereby we can go, oh, I'm really struggling with this. When I set up Capital Tuition Group, it just didn't exist. So if
mm,
people are thinking of exiting teaching and setting up tutoring businesses, which I warmly encourage because the market's big. So come and enjoy the fun. Um, what I'd say to you is be encouraged because this industry is established now and precedents have been set.
mm,
When I started up, and there are companies even older than mine, there was no precedent. There was no system. There was no platform. There was just nothing. We just made it
mm,
up as we went along.
mm.
So you at least when you come into this, and if you are thinking of setting up a tutoring business, talk to people. The
Yeah.
solutions are already there, and that's great. That's really great.
No, it's just such a big community of people, and we're finding ways of getting people together now. I mean, that's where Tutors Who Thrive and the Facebook group come in
Yeah.
as well. Which when all this started, when I started all of creating this community, I didn't even know about the TTA. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's really come through. I mean, the growth of what we've done as a community alongside the TTA and working together, it's just been like incredible. And I believe now, looking over the last couple of years, it's in such a strong position where people are suddenly going, "Oh, we can support one another. We can have open conversations. We can say, actually, yeah, there are these solutions out there. We've been there and trod this ground, so it's flat for you to follow through. Come and talk to us because we have the solutions, as well as be
Yeah.
part of the exit from teaching, or if you've already done that, be part of the growth of your business alongside working with agencies or businesses like yourself. So yeah, I'm a big believer that the tuition industry is in a really good place right now, and it's only going to get bigger and stronger.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think that the more events that are put up, like your group, your community, that's incredible. That didn't exist when it didn't exist when we started. But like the Tutors Association conference is absolutely massive now.
Yeah,
The fact that 25 delegates from the UK forked out all of that cash to go and do
yeah,
the Chinese trade mission, the fact that we're already talking about having another secondary trade mission, the fact that
yeah,
you've got companies like and organizations like Sarah Capewell at Astor Academy, who's sort of galvanizing groups of tutors and tutoring companies because they want to internationalize. Like there's loads going on now in a way that before everybody was behind their own walls, sort of, oh no, that tutoring company is over there, that's our arch enemy. We're not going to be talking to them.
mm,
That's not there anymore. And that's so lovely to just go,
mm,
are you struggling with this? Yeah. Oh, you do that? Oh my gosh, I never even thought of that. That's great. Thanks very
mm.
much. Bye.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much that. Right,
Yeah.
listen, Matthew, I need to go because I've got a tutor in a second. So I'm going to open my door and have a session with a lovely young lady who's only just moved to the UK from China, which is,
Okay.
yeah, really random. It's been brilliant working with her this week. Listen, I'm So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing this space. It's been great having a conversation with you and then sharing your journey away from marine biologist in Kenya to teacher to tutor to tutor on board, and this whole theme of look, whatever you're doing now doesn't have to be the thing. It can just be whatever you need it to be right now, so that you can go and find whatever it is in the future. So I really appreciate that. It's been an inspiration, mate.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for so much for having me. And I generally am a believer in take the next step, because the next step after that will show itself to you for sure, every time.
Amen, brother. Thanks very much, man.
Have a great tutoring session.